September 11th started out that day like any other day. I worked at the Frederick County Emergency Communications Center. I was on duty, and we usually have the morning news on, and we were watching it, and all of a sudden, boom, that first plane hit, and it's like, uh-oh. And then the second one hit, and everybody knew then that life was about to change. Things got real busy, and I came home. I received a telephone call from the communications center, and they said, we've got a call from the command post at the Pentagon, and they wanted to know if you would take your ladder truck down to the Pentagon. And I said, well, if they need us and our country needs us, we'll be on the way. So 5 of us left on that journey. Our ladder truck didn't have a roof. It was an older ladder truck, and it didn't have a roof. And they said they needed something that would fit down inside the Pentagon. I tell you, that trip was eerie. Our ladder truck had a low gear rear end in it, and it would only go 55 miles an hour. And it would only hold 2 people. So we had 2 people, a driver and someone riding shotgun, and then we took our duty vehicle. For the rest of us followed behind. We met one vehicle from Woodsboro to the Pentagon. I said to the guys before we left, I said, guys, we're gonna go down here. We're gonna do the best job we can, but I want you to be careful, because I figured, you know, that you'd have a lot of people down there that were scared, mad, nervous. And I said, watch our P's and Q's going down there. What they needed us for was to fit inside the Pentagon, because the entrance ceilings were only 10 feet tall, and none of the modern equipment would fit in there. And ironically, our doors here are 10 feet. So we've never bought anything over 10 feet, so I knew that we would fit. When we got down there, it was dark. And as we approached I'm expecting to see a lot of stuff. They had the part where the plane went in was all lit up with lights, and you could see that. We got an escort to bring us in, and it didn't see much. It was quiet. It was eerie quiet. The guy said, look, it's only 10 feet tall. Follow the hose line in it. And wherever there's a coupling, they had a little ramp, which actually made it less than 10 feet, because your truck would rise after it goes across. So we entered it, and I expected to see military all over the place, guys with, standing there with guns. Didn't see any of that. We got into the courtyard. Now, I had never been to the Pentagon, didn't know a whole lot about it, but we went inside and got into the courtyard, and that's where they go, and grass and picnic tables. And after you put 2 and 2 together, you can see this happened, and everybody dropped what they was doing and ran, or whatever they did, went for cover, not knowing what's going on. They had an inside the Pentagon command post, and the commander walked up, and I'll never forget this the rest of my life. And he walked up to this tall, lanky captain, walked up to me and said, Chief, how can I help you help us? I will take that phrase to my grave, because it was the greatest introduction that I've ever heard. And then I started to feel at ease, and walked over to command post. And what had happened, where the plane hit, naturally there was fire, and they had been attacking it all day. But as darkness set in, there was pockets of jet fuel all over the place, and every now and then you'd hear explosions. And they decided it was too unsafe to try to put the fire out tonight, to stop it and not let it go any further into the Pentagon, and then we'll battle it in the morning. We were the last line of defense. We were at the section where the fire had burned up to, and our job was to keep that drowned with water. we pulled up to where we needed to position our ladder truck, and there was a pickup truck sitting there, and it was locked up. It was like whoever was delivering something, they locked up and ran. The driver of a ladder truck was a mechanic. He crawled up underneath of it, disconnected the drive shaft, and we pushed it out of the way, and then we put our ladder truck in. And I noticed that there was another type of ladder truck in there with, they call it a squirt. It's basically a water pipe, big water pipe. They had cut the roof off of it to get it in there, and they was using that too. In the middle of the night, which was I'll never forget that, a small truck come in and backed up, and I said, well, I wonder what they're gonna do. And it was a truck full of body bags. And they put them all out on the grass. They laid them out. There must have been 200 of them. They was just covered. And through the night, some of the firemen would come through, and they would go out and get some, a little something to eat and drink, and would lay on the body bags and take their gear off and, and lay down, try to get some rest. Well, a lot of people didn't realize, including myself, was that's a very tall building. It was like 4 or 5 stories. And between each section of the Pentagon, there's a hallway about the size of this engine room wide that goes down. Command post had asked us, can you get any deeper into the Pentagon? And I said, I'll find out. Actually, there was a guy on a golf cart who was a maintenance guy. And I said, if anybody knows this place, he does. I said, will you give me a ride down to where the most damage was? They want us to go down in there. So he said, yes, sir. And he took me down in there, and it was too unsafe to go down inside it. I looked down the one hallway, and I said, what is that? It just looked like I didn't know what it was. It was weird. And I walked up to it, and I stood there, and I looked at it, and then I noticed a tire. And then I started noticing the color of the tin pile. And then I noticed body parts. And I looked over at the wall where the plane had come in to the Pentagon. I looked, and there was this big circle, hole. And I lined it up there, and I looked, and I said, I realized this was the cockpit. Where that hole was, I walked over, and naturally it was unstable. And I took my flashlight and went into them, and I seen some sights that I never want to see again in my life. I came back and to our ladder truck, and I took each one of my guys down to see this. Strategy for the next day, it was told by command post, was bringing all the new fresh troops in and attack this thing in the daylight. We just needed to be part of the stopping it from interfering, going in and doing any more damage to the Pentagon. That next morning, about 9 or 10 o'clock, they brought in a new commanders too for the inside command post. And again, we got this older ladder truck. We're volunteer boys from up in the country. And each one of those commanders came over and saluted me and thanked me for what we did. At that point right there, I felt like $1 million. September 12th on the morning, it was a beautiful morning, the sun was shining, and I looked up at the end of the ladder truck, and a rainbow had formed across the Pentagon from our water, and I just looked back at the guys, and I said, I knew we was gonna be all right. I heard a person say that maybe today our flag, we hung a little lower because of the tragedy. And I told the person, I don't think our flag ever stood any taller.